Ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying the show, please share it with at least 3 people. I also have to make an apology. For some strange reason, I've been having some audio quality issues that aren't necessarily from my end, and I've made some changes in the way I approach guests for the show so that they can prepare adequately so that you can have the best sound possible. Thank you so much for listening, and I promise I am going to make things better. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, me. And today I have an awesome duo who are the new dynamic duo of literary works. And that is Charles Breakfield and Roxanne Burkey, better known as Breakfield and Burkey, the authors of the Enigma series. Hey guys, how you doing today?
Just fine, Emmett. How are you?
I'm doing quite well.
Good to see you again.
So what the audience doesn't know is this is our second go around. We did a interview a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep.
And through some technical difficulties, I tried my best, but I just said, I would rather do the recording over again just to make sure that we get all the clarity, because here's why it's so important for you guys to listen to these individuals, because they are a team. And this is so important in our daily life, to be able to work alongside and with someone else. And they are an exemplary duo that performs this task and can give us some inspiration. So thank you guys for being so patient. Let's talk first about the books. So the Enigma series, how did it start with the series of books? What was the first?
The very first one in the series is the Enigma Factor. And it actually started because Charles and I had written a bunch of technical manuals, and he got sick of that, and we decided we weren't going to write anymore. And so I decided I would start a story, and it was like kind of fun, and got about, 6, 7 chapters into it, and took it back to him and said, all right, new deal. We're going to write and we can kill people. I think that was the part that got him.
Yeah, she doesn't take no for an answer. I'd like, okay, well, here's a way to be able to do this. We're going to whack some people, the people that ticked us off last week. And I went, this sounds compelling. So, I'm in.
So how did it develop into a series of books? Do you guys sit down? Who comes up with the initial idea, or is it a tag team? Someone comes up with an idea and the other person is the technical kind of strategic person, or is it a combination of the two?
It actually works as a combination, Emmett. We partner. I mean, sometimes she'll wake up with an idea. It's like, ooh, here, try this one on for size, Batman. And so I'm like, okay, but that's not bad. And we do what we call literary ping pong. So she'll bat something over to me. I'll wordsmith on it. I'll ship some of it back, and then before we know it, we've story smith, character smith. We've got a good product by the time we get to the end of that chapter or that concept, and it helps set the stage.
So one of the other things that I was wondering about, how did you develop your characters? Because, a lot of times, are they pulled from your own lives, or are they pulled from people that you disliked or really liked? Like, especially the people that get killed. Are those the people that you didn't like in your life?
Well, yeah, of course. That's the whole point. But some of them are composites of people that have crossed our lives. Some of them are very, very specific people that we like or really have been very mean to us. So, for an example, in book 4, The Enigma Race, there's a scene that takes place in Ireland. And it actually has one of the characters that we have worked with a very long time that lives in Ireland, and he helped proof those particular areas to make sure that we were kind of spot on with how we were representing something, just to make sure. But, I've heard Charles offer up to people, well, if you're really nice to me, I'll let you be in the next book. But
well, I mean, and again, a couple of times we've like in book number 2, we've got a couple of unsavory characters that, I actually met a bank robber. I actually met a guy. I met with him, and the FBI filled me in with all the sort of details for his past. So we have some strange folks in our background that really do show up, and they make great characters.
Awesome. So, Roxanne, I want to ask you. I'm going to start with you.
All right.
What is the elevator speech of the book? So, if someone wants to know, hey, I heard you're an author. What are your books about? What is the synopsis?
That's perfect. So we actually categorize them as techno thrillers. So they have a foundation of technology. We layer on travel, romance, mystery, intrigue, romance.
You said romance, right?
I did say romance, right? Pathos.
Yeah, well, pathos. I'm not sure what pathos is, but we wanted them in the book. So.
Intrigue and a little bit of humor. I'm learning humor, so that's been something that's been 10 books so far, and I'm still learning how to be humorous.
Why, are you a stoic person in real life?
Am I a what?
A stoic person. Are you kind of like one of those broody, very serious people who's always introverted?
Yes, I am.
This is really bizarre to me. So who is the more emotional person out of you two? The one who can really delve into the emotion characters and say, I don't think this person would react this way because that's not part of their emotional composition.
Well, we spend a lot of time character smithing on stuff like that. But
so how do you pull out the emotional content of those scenarios?
Well, sometimes it's that literary ping pong that also builds those things that we want to see in a character. We want to see certain attributes. There's some things that show up that we need in the storyline, and sometimes she'll offer that extra enhancement. Sometimes I'll give it. Sometimes it's a female would never say this, and sometimes a male would never say that. So. We get that tweaking that really gives us that extra dimension for the storytelling.
So let's go through the books. Starting with the first book and moving toward the latest book. Just give me the titles. As you can see them in the background, but those of us who are not on the podcast and don't have the visuals can't see.
So the very first one is the Enigma Factor, and its focus is identity theft.
So after that, we pick up the Enigma Rising, and that's all about cloaking the bad boys from the characters that are actually trying to stop their moving business, and their moving business is all around moving drug dealers and their money out of harm's way. So it's kind of a fun exercise and a great character study. We're pretty proud of that one as well.
The Enigma Ignite is really about drones and nanotechnology.
And book number 4, I kind of like book number 4 because it's got some of our favorite characters in there. And it's also that's where the supercomputer virus that is being launched against several municipalities and different hydroelectric plants. So it's a very, very complicated, very fun exercise.
The Enigma Stolen, which is book number 5, is really about stealing the future. So, for example, when people want to go shopping and then you go back to Amazon the next day and it shows you 5,000 new items to take a look at because you bought something the day before, that's the algorithm for stealing your future.
Whoa.
Book number 6, we got into some interesting technology where we wanted to be able to see what it would be like to re-engineer human beings to live forever. So the good guys and the bad guys are racing for the magic formula, and it's very there's a lot of subplots in that one. Great story.
Book 7 is the Enigma Gamers, and it's also a cat's tale. So a cat's tale is where we segue the series off and bring in a group that's a little grittier, a little more feet on the street. So it's the same core characters. And you had mentioned characters before, Emma. There's over 150 characters in the series, and they're not in every book, but they go in and out of the book. Number 8.
Number 8. That gets us to the Enigma Broker. And this is where the distortion of the information going into the commodities market that's misrepresenting the supply and demand factors, and how to be able to destabilize entire governments and corporations. And it's again, it's the cyber good guys versus cyber bad guys on the digital playing field for the commodities markets.
In book 9, which you are not seeing unless you are looking behind us, and that is the Enigma Dragon, and it's a Cat's Tale Part 2. It takes the world to 12 cities, 5 continents, and even the honky-tonk in Dallas, Texas.
Book number 10, we just got off the ground. It's just hit the Amazon, and it's in hard copy and digital. And that's about digital currencies, blockchain, Bitcoin, and who's on top for trying to be able to push their agenda and conquer the digital marketplace.
So when you guys do your research for these items, how do you get to the technical part? Because some of this stuff goes really deep. Well,
a lot of times, in our work, our regular day jobs, we come in contact with a lot of the kind of technology that we say, okay, let's if this is the way it was intended, what if we distort it and move it a couple steps to the left, and have the bad guys figure out a way to be able to make money off of it. So then that's where we get this, the story smithing activity where, like, well, what about this? And it starts to take shape in the spreadsheet, and then before we know it, we've got chapters laying down. And, that's sort of the genesis of each one of these books. It's a different theme, a different attack vector. A lot of fun.
So, we have together 50 years of technology background. I mean, that's our work. So 25 each.
So you're 25 years.
Yesterday.
You're 25 and he's 25.
Exactly. You got that right. So we take that technology background because we've worked in that field for so long. And as Charles said, we decided to turn it a little bit on its ear. And we do regular research as well for all of them. I mean, Commodities Market in the broker was specific to how fluctuation and changes really do impact the commodities market. And we're kind of, we're kind of at the mercy of what people say. Yeah. I know that you don't feel that unless you're on the internet now and again, but, in 140 characters, where does your mind need to be, right?
When you are going deep on some of these things, because it's really difficult and you can get lost as a author if you have a really rich story. Do you guys ever get information from the editor that says, this doesn't actually flow with that because or do you go back and look at your story and make sure that it flows true to how it's progressing?
So we spend a lot of time doing that, Emmett. The editor, we go through several iterations, including hard reads from ourselves and our beta readers. We're looking for those story flaws, things that were like, I missed that. How did I miss that particular detail? So we get great feedback from people saying, no, this needs some more help here. This doesn't work, or are you sure about that? Go check your facts one more time.
So our editor, we're very, very lucky. Our editor is Charles White. So she makes sure that we keep it aligned the way it needs to be aligned. And she does say, the character was called such and such like 10 chapters ago. What happened? They became, Molly Two Shoes somehow.
So you came together. How did that form that you guys said we should be a writing team?
Well, again, we started back at the early part of the century writing. technical white papers, and we do consulting work for Fortune 500 companies. So writing is what we do for our work, and sometimes we get overamped on some of the things that we write about, and they typically help that because we're presenting stuff to technical audiences, and getting that feedback, and that goes into storytelling, story smithing. So that we really want to be able to try and do. And sometimes I'll bake in too much technical babble stuff, and Roxanne, the editor, and all of our beta people are saying, you're off in the deep end, and you're going to lose all the readers. So fair point, and it's you're right. It's easy to get lost in what you're writing and forget, hey, you're trying to tell a story here.
And we actually have written a lot of non-fiction technical books or white papers, as Charles said, and we've done that because we've worked in the same organizations at times. So back to your original point, that's how we got started down the path. It just became boring because nonfiction, unless you are, the ABCs of how to do something, don't sell as well as, and aren't as much fun as out and out fiction.
All right, cool. So you guys got together and you were writing, were you working for the same company? How did that transpire that, from the white papers and the technical papers that you said, we can do fiction?
So we were at that time working for the same company, and we were actually doing training workshops for different engineers in different places. And it was one more nonfiction book that came out, and it sold very poorly. And Charles said, I don't want to write anymore. I'm done. It's hard enough just doing the real job and keeping up with the technology. We'll just keep doing workshops. I'm like, okay, fine. And that's when I started crafting, the fun, because I still liked the writing. I still enjoyed the writing, and I've done it for a very long time just for fun. But I wanted to have the technology side of it. And his expertise at that point was really focused on security and networks, and mine was more focused on contact center capabilities, telecommunications, and customer experience. And I thought, well, those would make a really good mesh.
Well, we also got to go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and do training exercise down there. So a lot of the travel and the different characters that we bring in, we do know people around the planet. One of our favorite characters we brought in on Enigma Gamers, she's out of the Philippines, and we had her as a mayor of Barcelona, and that's one of the cities that gets attacked by the digital bad guys. So we get a lot of folks that said, "Yeah, put me in." I've got several friends that. One from Costa Rica. I got one in the UK. We baked into the series, and we always start with we could use some new characters in our book. Give me some background on you, and
my goodness,
let me have some literary license with it.
So I've got a good one for me. So I'm one of those nerdy kids who always took things apart. So I like to learn bits and pieces of code and look in the back end of stuff to see how it's actually functioning. Now, but my expertise is in hardware. So if you could see around here, you'd see that I'm an Arduino freak and a Raspberry Pi freak. And I also used to just build circuits on a PIC. That doesn't even exist anymore. So I'm a hardware guy who has a history in spectroscopy, electronics, HMI, Profibus, Modbus. So I'm a communications. So I'm a communications guy on the itty bitty level. You could just pick, this bald head kid with the glasses who got picked on, who made evil devices that.
So you're actually going to like some of the characters in our story. One that you will have a lot of fun with, I think, is Andy. And Andy is a little boy from Georgia. And Andy has been in telecommunications for eons and loves to tell stories. And he tells some whoppers throughout the book. He goes out and comes back in and has some very amazing stories. So Andy's a fun character.
So were you guys familiar with Kevin Mitnick?
Yeah.
That was one of my... Oh my God! Yeah. I read everything I could on him. And that sounds like some of the stuff that you guys are into. And I'm going to go through the series, but I have like a ton of books that are on my pre-shelf already. So with that, let's get back to this. I want to find out, why did you choose to go through a publishing company versus self-published, which is so popular nowadays?
So we actually are small press. We are self-published. We started out on one avenue and then decided that we needed to actually build our own publishing company. We do go through small press. We chose that avenue because techno thrillers are an odd genre and kind of a newer genre. People want to classify you as either totally science fiction or totally a thriller. And because we do use science and technology that's real and relevant, as well as the thriller side, the techno thriller seems to be a little more. And since we wrote the first one, I'm actually seeing it as a genre in several places.
Yeah, we didn't want to be pushed into something that wasn't, that, a lot of the topics we saw were that's last year's stuff. We wanted to be forward-thinking, forward-looking with our books. And so, but in the small press, you get a chance to be able to control your destiny a little bit better.
It comes to mind Michael Crichton, who was one of my favorite authors. And when I began reading him, he came on the radar with Jurassic Park, but I hadn't realized that he had been writing since like the late 60s, early 70s. And his information was so far ahead of the curve that it only became relevant 30 years later. Do you think you could fall into some of that category as well? Because when you said they either fall in one category or another, that's what made me think of Michael Crichton, because his was very similar to what you're saying. It was very technological, but it had a weave story in there of suspense as well. But it couldn't be really science fiction because a lot of the things that he said really are true.
So that's a lot of what we bake into the books is, the cryptocurrencies. That's really relevant, but it's almost at its infancy, and it's difficult to be able to give somebody a quick understanding of how it works. So we take a look at that, and the battlefield communications, linking nanotechnology and drones for better safety on the battlefield. Software, virus softwares that are so virulent that they know how to assemble themselves behind the corporate firewalls where they can do the most damage. And so, those are the kinds of attack vectors that, they don't get a lot of play currently, but we're starting to see stuff like that show up on the radar screen. People saying, "Hey, this." She sent me something the other day. Said, "Look at this. That attack vector in book number 4. Here it is in print." So it's like, wow, it's kind of fun and kind of scary sometimes.
So I think part of the difference is, Michael Crichton was ahead of his time 25, 30 years ago. I think in many ways we're ahead of our time in some things, but not to that length of time. So technology freshness factor today has shrunken down to 24 to 36 months. Just look at hardware, right? I mean, hardware you can really count on 3 years maybe with your fingers crossed. So we are moving so quickly from a technology perspective and a usage perspective. Very, very different. So I think they're more relevant in ways that people just don't think of. I think the bad part is young people today. They don't realize how vulnerable they can be in some ways from technology. So hopefully that's part of it too. There's a little message in there to, be a little careful. You just never know who's watching.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That is totally true. So are you guys looking to get into the AI concept? I was listening to an interview with Elon Musk, and I was reading some articles, and I am always on the look for these various forums that I have about technology. There's this ongoing item with the Moog guy, Kurzweil, and Elon Musk, and they are very well proponents, except Elon Musk said this the other day. The event horizon for AI will be one of the most dangerous moments in the future because it will take us over. Have you guys thought about getting into, or am I putting the cart before the horse here?
Now, go ahead. Tell me about the book that's on the table right now that we're working on.
Yeah, that debate that you had was you talked about Elon Musk. He's. I tend to agree that premise. Probably not for the reasons that you think. And we're actually taking that whole concept of the artificial intelligence and looking at it from the theme for book number 11. And it's the Enigma Chronicles is the working title. Who won the AI wars? And it's a backward look from 2080, looking back, saying how did things get so sideways? And we take an extrapolation of some of the thought processes, and the big attack vector is the unrestricted deep learning that AI is capable of doing, and that's the one that Elon Musk is most vocal about, and it's got some very good points there for somebody that can run a very good company from an electric car standpoint.
So now that we know what's actually kind of on the table here, what are you guys doing as far as personal appearances? Where can people find your books? What if people would just want to see your lovely faces and probably get a reading? Are you guys have any plans for those scenarios in the future?
So we do. We have a couple that are coming up really, really fast, actually. First one is in Decatur, Texas, next Saturday at the Decatur Library.
Give me the date.
We'll be there about half a day.
You got to give me the date.
Oh, I'm sorry. That will be on September 29th.
Yeah, 29th.
In the afternoon in Decatur, Texas.
Okay.
And then, amazingly, on October the 6th, we are hosting the luncheon for rave readers because we are a finalist in the Roan Awards in Burbank, California. Indie Tale magazine has picked up the Enigma Factor Audible, and it is a finalist. We will find out that night if we actually win the first prize and go home with it. But we are hosting an author luncheon on the 6th. And we would love to have people come and take a look at it and come visit with us. We've got some great prizes that people who sit at our table for lunch will be able to take home. And we actually are going to have an Enigma machine as the centerpiece of that actual table. So it'll be fun.
A lot of people don't know what the Enigma machine is. That's the World War II decoder that the military used to intercept messages, correct?
It is, and it's also the forerunner of today's computer. Good job.
Good job, yeah.
I just let the nerd out.
So the Germans had used it for encrypting all of their communications. And one thing about the encrypted communications, you can say, hey, I'm going to be over here, and we're going to stomp on this country, and nobody knows about it, which is kind of what happened to the Polish country in 1939. Germans ran in so fast, they overran the Poles in 30 days. One of the things that happened was that the Poles grabbed one of the Enigma machines from the Germans, and before they shipped it to the Brits, and Alan Turing and company they're in England, where they broke it with a computer, they copied it. That's what we postulate. That's where the Enigma book series comes from. They also had a copy. They also understood the encryption algorithms, and they are the ones who decided they would be the good guys of Enigma and in the digital world. to be able to fight the bad guys. So the Enigma machine is a very centerpiece to the series, and it is the beginning of the computer age.
And the main good group in the series is called the R group, and those founders of the R group are the ones who captured a copy of the machine, which is why today, across the entire series, they can look for information to agencies of the first world countries under contract, by the way. So they have a lot of fun doing that, and come up with some very forward-thinking ideas. Now, people can also go to our website, which is theenigmaseries.com, and two things can happen there. One, they can certainly get samples of all the books. The first 6 are in Audible format as well, and they can listen to sample chapters done by our wonderful narrators. They also can sign up for our email list and get their free coloring book, which is from the series as well, which is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Now, excuse me. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know where to go get the books. You know where to find them. So there is no excuse. You can even get Audible versions. Are they available on Audible?
They are. Audible and iTunes both have the first 6. Right now, the Enigma Gamers is being worked on. Certainly, they're available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Kobo and all of the usual suspects. But if someone wants to order them from the website, they get something very special. They get it noted to them and signatures of the authors, which you can't get anywhere else.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you, Emmett. You have a great day.
Thanks, Emmett.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know how it ends. Remember, we are one. And I'm going to break it down even further to you. Remember, they say we started at the Big Bang, or they say we were created from God. Either way, we came from one place. So that means all of us share the same material. We literally are. And I want you to break it down like this because I had to think about it myself. Everything that is around us came from the same material, one piece of energy that connected to a slightly different vibrational piece of energy to make iron, copper, gold, carbon, which we are based in. So we are all of the same stuff. So get over yourself and love that other stuff because it is your stuff too. Till next time, love you all. Peace.